soon, just today. Yes, you gon' learn, you gon' learn, you gon' learn. It was just past 1, 2, 3 man with a 4, 5 step to the door like, oh my gosh, just throw that cash in a back bag, run around the back.
Hey everybody, it's Liz from the Lemon Bowl,
Vince from Irie Kitchen.
and welcome to the Irie Lemon Podcast.
Okay, here we are, episode 23. However, it might be our 23rd episode. What's different today, Vin?
Well, coronavirus has us using as a Microsoft Teams. So thank you guys for developing this product. But now we're doing our first, what do you call it, virtual video podcast experience with Yumna. So I'm excited for this.
It's funny because most podcasts are recorded remotely. Like every podcast I've ever been on was recorded like this. But for some reason, we were just always doing it in person with local guests. And so ironically, we had planned for our next episode to be, because she's out of California. So we had actually been practicing this a little bit, but nothing gets you ready to go and practice sooner than like a national pandemic. So without further ado, moving forward, we're so happy to have our friend. I know her as Feel Good Foodie. You might know her as Yumna. However you know her, say hello and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, so I'm Yumna Jawad, and aka Feel Good Foodie, and I'm also a Michigan food blogger. So Liz and I met a few years ago just through Instagram, cooking a lot of similar meals and just a lot of that Mediterranean stuff, and reunited that way. Or we met that way, not reunited, but yeah, and I've been doing this for about 7 years, and just doing the whole food blog thing. And before this, I used to work in marketing and in market research. So I did that for 10 years, and then somehow fell into this as a little hobby, like you guys, like, oh, well, let me just put this stuff out there and see where it goes. And before you know it, it becomes a career.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm really excited to have you on. I know we'll probably all have different, I want to ask you a lot of questions. I'm trying to figure out where to start because, of course, questions I would have asked you a week ago are no longer my priority questions right now. Now, obviously, first and foremost, something that's super unique about you is you have millions of Instagram followers.
Millions.
It's pretty unique. I don't have a ton of friends with millions. I mean, you guys think about that. Millions of followers. That's a whole lot of people. And I think that is something super unique. And I guess right now, obviously I'm sure people are going to want to learn some Instagram tips from you. So any Instagram tips from you would be great. And it might even also be helpful if you shared how you amassed that number, because as we both know, what you did then is no longer relevant, which is such a also important lesson in social media that what works today won't work in a month.
And how you started too.
Yeah. So why don't you start with that, and then we'll kind of move it to present day.
Yeah. Okay. So I first started in July 2013, and basically I said I have a perspective, and I want to share it with the world. I feel like I want to. I was on maternity leave, and I wanted to kind of share what I was eating and what I was cooking for my growing family. And I was like, I have a perspective, I want to share it, but I also don't know, like, what is amaranth? What is flaxseed? How do you use it? What is it good for? And so what I started to do was I said, you know what, whatever I cook for dinner and whatever these new ingredients I'm experimenting with, I'm just going to post about them. So I started sharing like, hey guys, today I tried steel cut oats. They're different from regular oats, and this is how. And did you know that they're good for this, this, and that? And people would say, well, what's the recipe? I'm like, well, what do you mean, what's the recipe? There's like thousands of blogs and cookbooks sharing recipes. I'm not here to share a recipe with you. I'm here to kind of like publicly learn about all these things that I think we should be eating and why we should be eating them. And so I did that for a few months, and everything that I shared would have like these feel good facts. And so my whole thing was sharing why are we eating something? And it's like, okay, here's a feel good fact about why you should put more strawberries or eat more amaranth or whatever it was. And people kept insisting on recipes. They're like, can you tell me the recipe? And I found myself after writing everything, even if it was just like a quick like chickpea salad that I posted, like, what's the recipe? And so I ended up writing the recipe in a caption, and I thought, whatever, I might as well just give it to people because they want the recipes. I might as well just put it out there. I didn't have a blog. It was all just Instagram.
Oh, so you'd
So
write the recipe out in the bottom of the Instagram post?
exactly. And so back then the
Okay.
captions were really tiny. They wouldn't allow you to write a really long caption. And so I would say, this is what I had. Check the comments for my recipe. Like, completely horrible way of sharing recipe. But people loved it. They would take a screenshot and they
Yeah.
would use it to make a recipe. And so so that's basically like how I got started. And what was cool about it back then was that there were two types of other foodies on Instagram back then. There was the food bloggers who were like established, they had a blog and they would say, hey guys, I just posted this pasta recipe, head to my blog for it. Then there was these other pages that didn't have any content, but they had millions of followers. And what they would do is we would say, here's a cool pasta recipe, and they would share other people's content. And they would
Right.
use that as content. So it's all
Right.
like curated content that allows them to grow a following online by sharing recipes and sharing
Right.
content. And then it allows them to build a following and then do advertising on their platform. And I was unique because I think there wasn't a lot of pages like me because I didn't have a blog.
Right.
So I wasn't sending people anywhere, and and it was my original stuff. So there was a very unique sweet spot that people really gravitated towards. And so the way I
What
started
year was
growing,
this? So this was like 2013.
13, yeah. And so what I started to do was I started reaching out to those huge pages and saying, hey, here's a recipe, here's a muffin recipe, here's an oatmeal recipe, share it. And so by them sharing it, it was getting me followers. And then I started joining contests. And then the growth was addicting. I was like, ooh, like this is great. I have 1,000 followers. Oh my gosh, I can get another 10,000. I can do this. And
Right.
I basically started learning about hack after hack after hack. And so I did it all. Like I did every single hack, some like crazy things and like giveaways. And
Yeah.
I paid someone like for like an advertisement. Like I just did all kinds of things just to kind of see what would get more followers, you know? And I think the most important thing that I did was that I was always on top of trends. So as soon as Instagram introduced something new, I jumped on it. And so that may not be 100% applicable today, but it still kind of is. When live first started, it's like, all right, let's go on live. What are we cooking today? When they started to do, when video first came out, they started to allow videos. I wasn't making my own video, but other people were, like the Food Network would share how to clean a pan. And I was like, well, this is great. It's not
Yeah.
with any recipes I have, but it's like how to deep clean your pan. And so I would share that. And guess what? Like sharing a video back then, Instagram favored it so much that I would literally grow 10,000 followers a day just
Yeah.
by sharing videos.
That's really
So
smart. That's
yeah,
really
that's
smart.
kind of how I grew. And it wasn't until the algorithm hit in April 2016 that I realized like I could actually lose this tomorrow. All of a sudden my engagement dropped dramatically, and I
I was gonna ask,
realized,
what was it like before, and then what was it like after?
yes. So back then it was like the engagement was amazing. It was probably like, for 2 million followers. I think in April 2016, I had 2.4 million followers probably, or 2.3 million followers. And so back then I would get like 30,000 likes, 40,000 likes on something like very easy.
Wow.
It's
Oh
insane
my
to think
gosh.
that. Yep. And then the algorithm hit, and just like that, things just dramatically changed all of a
And
sudden.
how did you know the algorithm hit?
Well, it's the whole chronological. The biggest algorithm change was the chronological one.
Oh, okay.
All
Okay.
of a sudden we no longer saw things in chronological order. And so I used to make money from doing ads 5 to 6 times a day, where like a protein powder company would say, hey, post this for 1 hour, we'll give you X amount of money. And all of a sudden they're like, well, the ads are getting pushed to the bottom. And just because we paid you for a 12 o'clock, a 5 o'clock, and a 9 o'clock, no one's seeing those anymore. It's
Right.
not, chronological where they're going to see it 12, 5, and 7 or whatever.
Right.
So that's when I said, that's it, time to start a blog. And I said, oh my gosh, I just had all these regrets. Like, why didn't I start a blog earlier? Why didn't I do this?
Wow.
But in a way, having that big, massive Instagram following hugely helped my blog, because from day one, I had like 30,000 page views, because all of a sudden just all those people went there. Like you can just send those people over there. But you realize that just kind of plateaus, when you have a blog. So it starts out really high, but then it just kind of plateaus because it's the same number of people. It's not going to grow the way like an Instagram page grows.
Right. Okay.
So so that's how it was. And so between April, for 2 years after that big chronological algorithm update, I lost probably 300,000 followers.
Okay.
Oh my
So
God.
literally what was happening was Instagram was cleaning up their database, and every single day I would lose 1,000 followers. And I kept blaming it on the algorithm. I kept saying, algorithm sucks. This is horrible. I mean, they're not showing my contents, you know, the hell with algorithm, with Instagram basically. And then it wasn't until like a few months after that that I just got a mind shift, and I said, what if my content just sucks? Like, what if it's not the algorithm? What if my content just sucks? Like, what if something is changing right now and I can't just be posting the same pictures that I used to post and sharing videos from the Food Network and from BuzzFeed anymore?
Right.
It's time to like think about what people want and
Mhm.
shake things up. And so that's when I started doing videos. And
So
so
what year are we in now?
so now we're in year 2016,
Okay.
like,
Oh my
or
God.
January 2017, basically. So about 3 years ago. And I said, you know what, time to start doing videos. And so I started with an iPhone and just would put it up with books and just lay it there and just film myself and then use iPhone tools and just started put, and then it was amazing back then. Like the kind of views that I would get were amazing.
Yeah.
They were still going viral. And so
Yeah.
eventually I got a team of people to start doing videos for me professionally. And it took 6 months, but eventually those videos would go massive viral, like 5 million people, like way more people than ever would
Oh,
see.
that's huge.
And I had a video where I basically cooked spaghetti by just throwing it in a pan with everything and throwing it in the oven. And that video was literally, I think it probably gave me 40,000 followers. This is last year. This is in
Yeah.
2019 that I was still able to gain about 40,000 followers in a week just by a
Wow.
concept that was so like
Yeah.
interesting, different, and just people hated it and people loved it. And you just
Mm.
so it came down to the content. I like my content did suck, and it was time to shake up the content in a
Mhm.
way. So while I went down to 1.9 million followers after the whole algorithm change, I'm back up now to 2.2. So I am still able to gain till this day
Wow.
by
That's
serving up content in a way that engages people better than ever.
Right. Exactly.
So,
And it seems
so
like
I've seen
videos are.
yeah, and video has just been instrumental for me in doing that. And I don't know if it'll continue to be because people are becoming desensitized to all those hands and pans videos. And so it's just like they've seen them all. There's not so many cool tricks anymore to see. And a lot of the videos that I had go viral were just like interesting things that like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't know that you can do that with spaghetti, or I
Right.
didn't know that like you can easily take a can of tomatoes and make shakshuka with it. Like,
Yeah.
recipes like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, are you during all this time, were you equally popular on Facebook and Pinterest as
No.
you are on
So
Instagram?
no, I was like a one solo platform
Okay.
content creator. And so it wasn't until 2016 that I said, all right, everything needs to start going up now. And so I started a Facebook page, a Pinterest page. I started the blog at that time. Basically, all of that kind of got started, and they've all been doing pretty well. Pinterest, I think my Pinterest was 5,000. It took like a year and a half, 2 years to get to 5,000 followers, and now
Mhm.
it's at 100,000, and it's because
That's
of
huge.
video. Because of video.
Right.
It's like literally I grew 90,000 followers in a year because of video, because people are watching those queer videos on, and Facebook
Oh
is just
yeah.
tough. Facebook has been really tough to push that in, but um, it's one of the things that I love to do is like growth hacks and getting early on a platform or getting in on a platform and figuring out like how do you grow fast? What are people doing? And I'm doing that with TikTok now. Like
Right.
started on TikTok in October and I have like 130,000 followers because I got in kind of
Wow.
Oh
early-ish and I
yeah.
was like, all right, what are people doing? What's happening? And testing out different things and just trying to grow really fast. So I did that with my blog, I did that with Pinterest, and I did that with Instagram and TikTok now. So 4 different platforms that I was able to like get in. And Pinterest wasn't early by any means, and the blog wasn't early either, but I was still able to get in there and figure out like, how do you create content that's so good that people can't ignore it?
Mhm.
They want to share it and talk about it.
Right. Well, and I
Wow.
think that's such a good lesson that, you know, you first of all, you can't do everything. So when you
No.
were focusing on Instagram, you didn't have a blog, and I think a lot of people feel like they're supposed to be doing everything amazingly. So like
Yes.
if your blog's doing great and your Pinterest isn't, that's okay. If your Facebook's great and your Instagram's not, I think it's all about having a diverse mix
Yeah.
of different ways you can reach people. And
Yep.
I think the other thing that I took from that is that it's really important to make sure you have high quality, useful content. And at the end of
Yes.
the day, you can control that. You can't control algorithm changes. These are free platforms that we don't own. But
Right.
what you can control, which you did, is you can control the quality of your content. You started using professional videographers. You
Yep.
know, you probably were more thoughtful and strategic with the recipes you were making. So I think that's such a good lesson to focus on what you can control.
It's so
Absolutely. Yep.
it's so crazy to me to hear your perspective on how you look at Instagram because obviously in 2013 I was a junior in high school,
I
and
know.
like I go back and think about, man, like I had an account that had a few followers, but I never knew that like you can make money off Instagram, and I feel
Yeah.
like until it was like later, and so like a lot of my generation was obviously on there for other reasons,
Yeah.
not trying to like show recipes or like figure out how to hack and how to grow. It was just, oh yeah, we all have Instagram to communicate, and like that was our social circle thing. So it's interesting to hear, how you and Liz kind of looked at it as like, oh, this is a platform to share content, a platform to share what I'm trying to do, a platform or a chance to make money. And then
Yep.
for us, it was just totally like, oh, I'm trying to like follow this girl. I'm trying to like do
Yeah.
all like it was never, it was never, it was never too deep in the sense of like, yo, I'm gonna figure this out.
And I don't think any of us really realized the potential of it. I remember my sisters would tell me, man, you're wasting so much time on it. And I did. And I said, well, we're all wasting time on our phones anyways. And I think that there's something here. And if I stick to it long enough, and they would make fun of me at one point. They're like, well, you made $100 a day today. So like, is that really worth your time? Like you spent like 8 hours on your phone because everything was on my phone back then. And so they would say, was that really worth it? Like you spend so much time and you made $100. And I said, oh, I don't want to look at it as the money right now. I just feel like there's an opportunity here for me to discover something to take it to, for someone to discover me and take it somewhere with that. Like there's something here. I don't know what it is. And I didn't know back then what it was. And the first time somebody wanted to pay me to do something, I'm like, you want to pay me $100 to like post this photo?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And delete it after an hour. Okay, that's pretty cool. And so it was, but I think what I had seen back then was, oh, there's people who are doing fitness pages. Oh, there's like travel pages. And I used to have a personal Yumna one when Instagram first launched. And I would share some food on there and my friends didn't care. They would like all the photos of my kids, myself. They never liked the photos of my food. I'm like, there's an audience here for the food. And that's when I did the Feel Good Foodie. So
Oh,
yeah, it's just really interesting because I don't think any of us fully knew the potential of it. And now there's so many people who are just, it's oversaturated. But you still hear people starting and still being able to amass a huge growth because it's all just about having a really interesting perspective to share and really high quality content, even if it's one post a week, like something really high quality to share that people can't help but to share it with their friends,
right. Right.
you just want to
Exactly.
share it. So yeah, and I'm trying to continue that as well now with the whole coronavirus. It's like, what do you want to share that's going to, I look at it three ways. Whatever I'm sharing on Instagram, I think about like I'm either educating, entertaining, or what's the third one? Or
Influencing.
influencing. Yeah. And so you kind of have to look at it like you're giving some kind of education, you're giving some kind of entertainment, or you're basically like educating people, like, well, and yeah,
Well, when I say
or
influencing, you talk
inspiring them.
about like I influence people. So you want to either be educating, like teaching them how to work out, entertaining them in
Yes.
something, or influencing them to cook a meal. Or for me, it's cooking or
Yes.
exercising, whatever. But
Like inspiring them. Yeah. So every single
inspiring. I know that's a
inspiring,
big probably
educate,
word.
inspire, and entertain. So every
Yeah.
single thing that I post, I'm like, is this entertaining? Is this educational? And all recipes are educational at some
Yeah.
level. But then if I'm just sharing like a simple salad where it's like beets, oranges, and lettuce, I'm like, is this really informative? I'm like, maybe not, but it's inspiring. I feel like the colors are beautiful for spring, and it's
Yeah.
inspiring to see something that beautiful in your feed to go out and recreate it with just three simple ingredients. So sometimes
Right.
it's just about that, and those might not be the most powerful posts, but people are looking to be inspired, influenced, inspired, educated, and entertained. Bottom
Such a
line,
great
and
fun.
those, yeah, and so that's really
All
what's
right,
gonna.
so here's a question I have. So, my question for you is with all of the um, algorithm changes, I guess, how do you approach Instagram growth differently today versus then? Because I know something I always hear, and something that certainly has always been my rule of thumb. Like, so for on the other hand, if you're listening, I only have like what 36,000 followers, and I've been doing this for 10 years, but
Yeah.
I still have a very successful, high profit, six-figure business. And
Yeah.
something I've always thought about, which is why, and I know neither of us do right now, but I don't buy likes, I don't pay
Right.
for likes, I don't pay for any of that stuff, because I would rather have a smaller, highly engaged audience, that people that genuinely want my content. Because as a healthy food blogger, I'm not going to probably ever appeal to the masses. We've joked on other podcasts why I
Sure.
don't do like the poke cakes and the casseroles and
Yeah.
the chocolatey things. Um, so my question for you is, did engagement also change with the algorithm? Like back when it was amazing, I assume, was engagement equally amazing beyond just the likes?
Oh, yes. And the engagement was equally amazing because what would happen is people were seeing things as soon as you were posting them. So
Right.
if
Okay.
I
Hence
knew
the
that like my
40,000 likes on
audience,
the post.
yes, my audience was always on at 9 p.m., for example, I'm like, I'm going to post at 9 p.m. because they're on. Now, if I post something at 9 p.m., I mean, people may or may not see it. It doesn't matter if they're on at 9 p.m.
Right.
Even if I go on my personal, I have a personal Instagram page. When I go on my personal one, even if I literally just posted a minute ago, Feel Good Foodie is not the first page I see. And Yumna,
Right.
personal Yumna page, likes 100% on Feel Good Foodie's posts, and it is still not the first thing
Isn't
that I
that
see. I'm going
interesting?
to see my sister's first. I'm going to see my husband's post first. And then maybe fourth or fifth or sixth down the line, I might see mine. But what if I give up by then? What if I'm scrolling, and then I get
Right.
interrupted and I give up? And so the engagement is just, it's not going to be as strong. But what happens is, I think a lot of people know this by now, but like Instagram basically will feed your posts to a handful of people. Like, so it's going to give them, I don't know, 10% or 20% of your audience is going to feed it to them. And based on how they react to that, that's when it decides, like within those 20 minutes, within that first hour,
That's
Instagram basically
interesting.
decides to kill or push your post basically. And so it's so important in that first hour to get people talking, to get people asking questions,
Yeah.
to be answering those questions, because it's going to actually send a signal to Instagram that people care about this post, people find it interesting, and that
Right.
more people would find it interesting and care about it.
I know on my platform, if there's a photo of me, it does so much better, probably 300% more than like a photo of just my food.
Yep.
So I think also to anyone listening, you can look at your insights and see which ones perform best, and you can see pretty clearly. And to your point, it is always within the hour. That
Yes.
first hour really makes a difference, but see what type of content is resonating best with your audience. And that's
Yep.
why I started outsourcing all my photography so that I could be in the photos, because
Yep.
I wasn't gonna like set up a tripod and laugh
Yeah.
at myself alone in the kitchen.
Like
So
your
but
salad.
but I notice every time it's a photo of me, it just performs better. So you just have to also, to your point,
Yeah.
look and see and do a little research and see what
Yep.
resonates best.
And don't be afraid to try something new. I have been trying a YouTube series where I'm doing IGTV, and so those videos they don't look as good because they're horizontal, so they show up horizontally. They don't take up as much of your phone as a square photo would or a vertical video would.
Right.
They're horizontal, they don't take up as much space, but the beauty of them is that they can be 5 minutes long. You can twist your phone around and actually watch them like you would watch YouTube, and you
Mhm.
can repurpose them for the blog, for ad revenue, and you can also repurpose them for YouTube. And so I've been experimenting with those because I feel that they're good bang for your buck to be able to post them on different platforms. And also, I feel like Instagram was favoring IGTV and trying to push IGTV, so I'm trying to experiment with that. And they're not doing very well. Honestly, the engagement is the lowest compared to photos and videos, and I think it's because they're long. People don't have the attention span to watch them, and they don't catch your eye because they take up such small real estate of your phone. And so,
Right.
but I'm still experimenting with them, and I feel that there is a time where they might become more popular, and if they're not, then I get rid of them altogether. But I'm also
Right.
experimenting with these like cute little 6-second loops where it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
they're just like fun way to show my personality, because there's my page is all about food, and pictures of me don't do well. And I was like, pictures of food
Oh
do.
really?
My worst photos are photos where I'm in them, because my audience wasn't used to that for the first 3 years.
Mm.
Like I would share a photo of me on my birthday or my kids at the farmer's market,
Right.
and I occasionally would share things, but people were there for food. They were there for
Right.
recipes and less to hear my perspective on
Well,
things.
and I feel like your brand, you have such a large, you're reaching millions of people.
Yep.
So I feel like my people are really there for Liz. Where
Yeah.
it's like your people might not even know your name.
Yeah, they may not even know
No.
exactly. And that's what
Right.
ends up happening. The bigger you get, the less they care about the person
Yeah.
behind it
Right.
and more about what you're serving them. So
Right.
I have to be careful. It's like, well, people don't necessarily want to see a cute picture of me at the farmer's market because
They probably
because
don't, but they
you
don't have any connection to you.
exactly. But so I felt like, okay, well, if I give them a 6-second video of me, like, there was one of me like with the ground beef, and I was like, ground beef. So,
Yeah.
just like
Doesn't
having fun.
Mediterranean Dish do a ton of those?
Mediterranean dish. She does IGTV.
Okay, because she
Yeah.
does a bunch of them. They're not bloopers. I mean, they're definitely on purpose,
Oh,
but
yes,
they're
yes, yes.
really funny, like quick,
Yes.
like you said. Just it
Yeah.
kind of shows the personality.
Yeah, exactly. And so there isn't even a video. It's just like 6 seconds of me like doing something, that like basically happened. The other one was like, I was looking at my watch, and it was like beeping at me to go work out. And it's just like,
Uh-huh.
my videographer grabbed it and he's like, this is hilarious. And so I end up posting it. And some things you also have to do to just entertain and kind of like not think about the engagement. And so there are some things that I share that I know they're not going to do well. And I still share them because I feel like, all right, this is my platform. It's my personality that I want to make sure people understand. I want to lighten the mood sometimes too.
Mhm.
So it's still important to get out of your funk and get out of like your niche a little bit if you can and just try something new. I'm never going to get out of food. My page is called Feel Good Foodie. It's always going to be food related. If I share anything about me, it's going to be me cooking something, buying ingredients, doing something with food with my kids. It's always going to be food related. But just trying to think outside the box because content gets stale after a while. And you have to think people, those hands and pans videos, everybody is doing them now. It's like, how can I make mine different? What else can I do to stand out?
Yeah,
From
exactly.
Yeah.
like for me, what to hop in here, I'm just learning all this information about Instagram and
I'm waiting for all your questions, Vince. I know they're coming.
but for me though, like going on to like finding new content and like being not afraid to try different things, like 100% for sure. Like when I started doing Irie late night, like the cooking show,
Yeah.
like that impacted my business more than me ever
Oh
posting
yeah.
a picture of food,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? Like it
Vince
never
might be hopping in. Welcome to the future, guys.
so like but yeah, so it never like it's funny to me that how like a cooking show could affect my business.
Yeah.
We don't even teach, like it's just all like you guys said, like it fell into entertainment,
It was
right?
entertaining.
Like I'm
And
not
I remember when
like
I first saw it, it shows your personality. And if
exactly.
Yeah.
you just go to your restaurant, like in a 5-minute exchange, like I remember the first time I met you, I didn't really know your personality, but then you watch Irie Late Night and then you can like get to know you. And then you start to have a personal connection to the brand and then you want to be loyal to the brand.
Yeah, so my question is like what are some advices or tips that you have for businesses like restaurants or retail based businesses? How do you think they should look at social media and what kind of things should we post and things like that?
Yeah. I think when it comes to businesses, a lot of user generated content is what does really well. It's like, here's what people are, when people are reposting their lunches, for example, when they're coming in to have lunch, like, oh, this is the dish that everybody keeps ordering, kind of showing that user generated content. And there's a place for it. You can do it in stories. You can do it in the feed as well. You kind of find a way to do it. What are things that people are saying about it? So it's more so you bragging about your business and other people bragging for you. And I feel like we kind of do that as a brand as well. Like when I pick one day of the week, like Friday, to share what everybody is making from my blog. And instead of just constantly sharing them, I pick one day, share it all. And instead of telling everybody, you really need to make my chocolate peanut butter bars, instead I'm showing 8 people making my chocolate peanut butter bars. That speaks so much louder than you
Yeah.
people like, you really need to order this jerk chicken. Instead of saying that, it's like, okay, look at the 17 people that ordered
Right.
jerk
Just
chicken.
ordered it. Mhm.
That
Yeah.
user generated content can be so powerful. And I know that we as content creators, we're like, oh, it doesn't look as pretty as my photo. And it's like, it doesn't look as nice of them taking the photo, but you have to find the right way creatively to show that because people want to follow the masses. And it's like, well, if 8 people made that today, like, man, I gotta go get the recipe and it's only 4 ingredients. Let me go get the recipe and make it, you know? So
Mm.
I highly recommend doing some of that for brands. I think it's very powerful. Like, what are people saying about your brand, and what are people buying or consuming from your brand?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's more to your point, it's why blogs became popular, is it's
Yeah.
more believable when you see what people are actually buying at Irie Kitchen
Yes.
versus what, the like the special that the restaurant owner is trying to push on you. Well, what are
Yeah.
people actually ordering,
Yeah.
on
It
that
goes back to testimonials too. Like, this is why a lot of websites will share testimonials, and why Nordstrom will email you after you buy something to go, please give feedback, because people want to see what other people are saying about it.
Mhm.
That's really going to be so much more powerful than you telling them that, like, we've got the best chicken dish, for lunch.
Mhm.
Oh, other
Right.
people are making that and attesting to it. So I found that to be pretty useful. And if people feel to be part of your community, they feel heard as well. And that is really powerful to let your audience know that, like, we hear you, we know you like this dish, and I'm sharing with it how much you guys like this. So they feel heard, they feel like they're a part of your community. And then, it just kind of like all over just has so many different benefits.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the present day.
Yeah.
I'm always my Enneagram type, where people are either future, past, or present oriented, and it's coming out now. I'm very present day oriented.
Yes.
So, anyways, obviously, right now we have the coronavirus going on. There's a national pandemic. So, obviously, at the date of this recording, because this will be out in a couple weeks, but as of right now, we're just like, it's the first Monday after schools have been closed. Restaurants just closed down today, including Vince's restaurant. So,
Oh,
obviously, we're all, we're very fresh to this.
yes.
And something that I thought, obviously, we had you scheduled to come on before this all went down, but what I thought would be interesting to talk about today is ways that you are using your platform, which, most people don't have that opportunity to reach millions of people at multiple times of a day for
Yeah.
essentially free of charge, in terms of like you can do it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So how are you, obviously this is really fresh, but what goals do you have, or even what have you been doing in the past few days to
Yeah.
basically use your influence to help people right now during this really crazy time?
Yep. No, that's an excellent question. And I think what comes with the masses is a lot of scrutiny. So you have to be
Yeah,
so careful what
I've
you
seen
say.
some of that already from you with the
So
shopping.
so much of that. So I first shared, I go grocery shopping twice a week because I'm testing on a day and doing video on another day. And then, so I shop a limited amount, like twice.
Yeah.
So I'll buy, okay, this is what we're
And we
testing.
buy a lot of food all the time, regardless.
We always buy a lot of food, and I'm
Yeah.
always, again, you and I know, we always have well-stocked pantries.
Yeah.
I always have rice, I always have pasta. You came over to cook with me,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, oh, these are the things I'll need. I'm like, oh, I already got them.
You
Like,
had every
I
single
know the
thing.
things that you cook with, the onions and the rice and the diced tomatoes. Like, we always have those things on hand. So when before anything was really going on, I mean, we were started to hear a little bit of Italy, what was happening. I stocked up, and I showed the back of my trunk to show like how much stuff was in my groceries. And I do that often. I'm always like ready for the week. I'm stocked up and ready for the week. But this time was a little bit extra. And I did get a lot of scrutiny of people saying that I'm inciting panic, and that people should not be hoarding. And, so I had to kind of take back and realize, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize so many, at that time, I didn't even realize people were so sensitive, or people were not stocking up, because now you're hearing it from everyone, stock up, stock up. Like, it's essential to do that. So I just had to realize, like, all right, take this time and, correct the image that I shared in a way, or address the image that I shared, but also add to it, inform people, and talk about, like, what did you buy? Why did you buy those things? And just really going into detail of, like, what are the things that you should have on hand? For how long should you be stocking, things like that. And so I addressed some of those things on stories, um, and then I basically took the time. It's really hard because you want to share so much, but you have to be so careful what you share, because information is changing so fast. People are highly sensitive one way or another. And so many people were in denial in the beginning as well. Like, this is not true, it's not happening. And so you have to be very sensitive about how you address all of that. So I'm
Yeah.
basically taking my platform right now to continue to, inspire, educate, and, entertain. So, you know, for information, for example, one thing that I'm doing for information is I'm now sharing some guides about, like, Here's how to stock your pantry. Something I've been meaning to do for 2 years. I've been meaning to do this post on my blog. And I kept saying, oh, eventually I'll renovate my kitchen. I'll move into a bigger kitchen and I'll have the most gorgeous pantry that I can share on my beautiful blog. And now I wrote that post in a matter of 2 hours. I sat down, I'm like, buckle down, Yumna. What's in your pantry? Give people the information. And I got it out. And I'm also sharing, pantry meals. Like, what can we do with frozen vegetables, frozen fruits?
Yeah.
How do we preserve the things that we did buy that are fresh? How do we preserve garlic, for example, that you and I eat a whole lot of? And so I'm sharing that kind of information that I think, regardless what your opinion is about the coronavirus and about what's happening, they're useful things that
Yeah.
people can find useful. I'm also trying to entertain. So, making light of the situation. Like, I posted a funny little like TikTok video yesterday of oh, I'm online shopping and I accidentally bought the wrong pan. And just like funny things to just lighten the situation.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. We're all sitting at home. So any kind of, funny memes or funny situations, or me laughing at my kids doing something because they're at home. So just that whole entertainment part of it. And then ways to inspire, like, like, you can do this too. Here's an idea of something that we did. Here's something that my kids are doing. Maybe you can do the same thing. I'm not perfect, but how can I, inspire you with like uplifting words, or, hey, did you know that you can do this? Or, hey, go out for a walk. Like, here I am for a walk. Why don't you do the same thing? So I'm taking the platform to do it more so than ever, because I used to look at my stories like, oh, on Monday I share behind the scenes of doing video, and on Tuesday I'm going to share a quick meal that I made that I pre-recorded 10 days ago. On Wednesday I'm going to do a what I ate Wednesday, and I'm going to show all my beautiful meals that I ate, my oatmeal and my cute snack, and and on Thursday I'm sharing this. And so I kind of have like a little bit of a content calendar in mind for stories. And sometimes it's things that we're doing, but I don't share too much of my daily life. I'll share more things related to food. Grocery shopping, I'll share that, like, on Sunday, what did I buy on Sunday? And now it's just kind of like every day is the same, and it's more about that relevancy. Like, what do people need today? What are they looking for? Is everybody panicking? Like, maybe it's not the time to make like light of the situation. Maybe it's time to inform. Is everybody kind of like, now, people are accepting it. Everyone's home now. Maybe now it's okay to like make light of the situation and start laughing a little bit about some of the things that like we're doing. So so I'm just kind of rethinking that. And in the past also, I've just been more timid about showing myself on stories. So it's like, here's my meals, here's behind the scenes, here's me on my phone. Not really showing myself much. And now I'm like, okay, here, I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to get in front of the camera and I'm going to put my face there, and I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to address what's going on today. So, so I'm trying to use my platform as much as possible to share. But every single thing I'm sharing right now, I'm like, okay, will it help people? Will it entertain? Like, can I share?
Yeah.
Share? Is it relevant? And so there's a lot of things that I'm like, okay, maybe it's not so relevant to share this now. I have a sponsored post that goes out today for red curry noodle soup. I'm like, it just feels so weird to share that right now, Like, how do I share that? And I owe it to the sponsor that paid for that post to share it in the right way. But you have to kind of think twice. Okay, how am I going to share that now? What's the messaging have to be? How do I switch that for people's frame of mind? So, so I'm continuing just to kind of think about that and just restructure things to make it more like practical to what's happening now. And I'm trying to stay not too political about it. Like, I want to shout out to the world my personal opinions and aggravations and things that are happening. And I'm just like, you know what, guys, it would be better if you did this, or I would highly recommend.
Right.
You still have to be, yeah. It's
All right. So, do you have a question? If not more, it's like I'm doing all the talking. Since the screen is frozen, I can't hear him.
I didn't hear anything you just said.
Oh, I was saying, do you have a question? Because I know I'm talking a lot. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I'm actually just like learning so much, and it's kind of like, oh, like, right? It's like this like a wealth of knowledge there. So I'm just, also to the people who are probably listening with me, it's like, oh my God, there's so much there to think about. I like the way you think about your user, your end customer. I think that's smart. That's what I got from you. Other questions is just like, currently, like, how do you say you're on TikTok.
Yeah.
Is your goal, like, is food content still working the same way does Instagram? Are you changing it up? Like, how do you look at the different platforms? Is there context in your brain of how to share, or do you take the same video on Instagram and you post it on TikTok? Like how do you look at that? Do you change it?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And I think you have to think about the different platforms like different parties, you know. So when you're going to like, you know, when you're going to a party at like a nightclub, you're going to dress a certain way, like, you know, act a certain way. It's acceptable to be like dancing, whatever. If you're going to a party at somebody's house and they're having a potluck party, you might dress a little bit differently. You might, you know, you might have to bring something like what you do. So all of these different platforms are like parties. Like when you go to a different party, there's a different expectation of what you do when you show up at that party, and you can't take the casserole that you know that you would take to a potluck to the club because it doesn't make sense to make
That's
that
the
casserole to the
perfect
club.
analogy of bringing
So
Instagram.
this is like my analogy, the way I think of it. And what was happening with my Facebook, the reason I don't think I was, you know, it's probably my poorest platform is my Facebook. It's because I'm trying to take what's on Instagram to apply it there. And every platform is so different. So and so when I first started on TikTok, I was like, this is great. I already have all these videos. I'm just going to throw them on TikTok. They don't work because what people are looking for is not these final, beautiful hands and pans kinds of videos. They want a person. They want to follow people. And so personalities matter more than ever. Like on Instagram, you can get away with nobody ever knowing who you are. You can just share the most beautiful pictures of food, which is what I did for many years, and barely showing my face here and there. But on TikTok, people want the personality, for example. And so when I'm there, I'm actually doing a lot more challenges, for example. Challenges are really fun. So I did a flip the switch challenge with my daughter where like we flip the switch and we exchange clothes, and it's just fun and different and has nothing to do with food, but it's just a different way of showing my personality. Right. And so the people on TikTok, it's a completely different audience. It's a much younger audience, and they're having fun over there. And so when I am showing food, it's like, all right, guys, here is 5 ingredient, no big energy bites. Boom, 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 boom. Put it all together. Here's what you made. And people love that. It's simple, you know, and when I tried sharing other dishes that maybe it's a little bit more complicated, they're not interested in that. They'll say like, oh, I'm going to tell my mom about this recipe. Like it's literally 13, 14-year-olds that are following you. And is that my target audience? No, by no means is that my target audience. But I think it's a good way to extend your brand. People of all ages love to cook. My 9-year-old and my 7-year-olds love to cook. They love watching cooking videos. And so, but the audience there is watching it for a different reason. And they might tell their mom like, hey, like, we should make this smoothie recipe, or we should make these no bake energy bites. And so you have to think about like who that audience is and what they're craving. And I made no bake energy bites, but I made a video of it. I made a photo of it. I made a real talk of me holding my phone and mixing things with my left hand of it. So it's the same content, but you're basically repurposing it over and over again for a different audience. And the cool thing about that as a food blogger is that it gives you a chance to recipe test that thing over and over and over again. So I end up making the same thing 5 times because I'm showing a raw thing for Instagram stories. I'm making it cutesy and fast for TikTok with a fun song. I'm doing it very professionally for Instagram with hands and pans, which can also get used on Pinterest. And, you know, so it's the same content, but just repurposing it over and over again in a different way. And it doesn't take that long sometimes to do that because, you know, the recipes that we make often, we can make them so quickly that it's just like, all right, let me do it again for this. Or now let me do it with me filming myself. And like, because people on TikTok want to see my face. So here, guys, here's me making this recipe. I'm going to do it. So, and then on Pinterest, for example, it's taking that video, but making it into a collage so that it takes up more of the pin. Yeah. On top of it, or adding a process shot on top of it. So sometimes you can just repurpose that same exact video, and other times.
So how are you learning all this? Is this by trying and doing, or are you like listening to podcasts? Like, is there like, how do you, is it both? Like, how do you do it?
It's a little bit of everything, basically. When I started on Instagram, I would talk to the little kids. Like the little kids are on, they know what's up, you know? And I basically, when I first started Instagram, I would follow like just the little kid accounts and I would see what they were doing. And I'm like, oh, there was a day, for example, where if you put a geotag for Singapore, all of your posts. So I saw like 5 kids that I follow had like, they were tagging Singapore. I'm like, why is everybody in Singapore? Turns out there was an algorithm, like there was something like a glitch. where Instagram was trying to feature more accounts from Singapore and the North Pole. So everybody was literally tagging the North Pole and Singapore. And
Oh
so I
wow.
did it. And I had like a pretty mediocre photo get like 40,000 likes in a time where the algorithm was not doing very well. And so that photo is still there. And I think it's just so funny. And I think I took off, I don't know if Singapore is still on there. I have to double check if it's still on there. But I try to follow the relevant accounts. And so some of them are little kids, but others are people like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, who is influential. He's a leader. He's talking about what's current, what's happening. So following those kind of people who are talking about what's in and now. And then listening to a lot of podcasts. There is a podcast that I listen to, and it's about fashion. It has nothing to do with food, but I really learned so much from it. And the person who was doing the podcast was literally saying, in August, go on TikTok, get on TikTok, get on TikTok. And I was like, why is he so much about TikTok? And so I finally just took that advice and got on there. And I figured out who's growing fast on TikTok. What are they doing? And let me follow them. They might be kids. They might be food bloggers. Most of them, there's not food bloggers on there. Like there's 2 people, I think. There's literally like a handful of food bloggers. So I got on there right away and figured out like who's growing fast. What are they doing? Watching habits. And just trying to observe some of that and trying things out because I had no idea what was going to work. I actually put an Instagram video, like a square one that did go viral. I was like, oh, this is great. It'll work. But then 5 others didn't. I'm like, oh, well, it wasn't. But if I do a challenge of me, they're all going to do pretty well, pretty well, And so it's just about like seeing what people are doing, what people are talking about, and just staying on top of it. And it's a lot of experimenting. And so now people come on, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. You grew to 130,000 followers on TikTok. I'm like, well, I deleted, and I deleted stuff too, because some things were just like I had me singing a Celine Dion song one day that was just like pathetic. And generation didn't get it. It was a Celine Dion song. It was like, I was singing all by myself about like how to do dishes by myself. And like the kids did not understand it. And I just like an idiot. And I deleted it. And so I look at it now and I probably have 85 videos or 100 videos, but I think I've deleted 100 videos. So it's just about like playing around with things to figure out.
So is that a thing? Do you delete things that don't do well or things you don't like? Is that part of the strategy?
It's part of the strategy when you're first trying to a platform. I think so. I think it's okay to do that because what happens too with TikTok is once you have that one video that goes viral, and my biggest video was the No Big Energy Bites. I have 100,000 and it had 4.5 million impressions. It just went viral, 4.5 million views. And so I'm like, all right, I just got to make everything no bake from now on. And so what happens when you have that many people coming to your account is everybody is looking at that and coming to your account. So you want your account to represent who you are right away. So they come and they're going to see the first like 9-10 things on there. It's a grid like Instagram. And so they're going to see those things and say, oh my gosh, okay, I get who she is. She's got kids. She loves to cook and she's an idiot. Or she likes to have fun, and she doesn't take herself too seriously. Mm-hmm. So you kind of want people to get that impression of you right away. And if they see a lot of things that tanked, it's like, oh, well, her content is that good.
So here's a question that I have. Obviously now we have our kids home with us. So what advice, I'll be asking this to everyone because every guest we have coming up that has children that are going to be home with them now pretty much. Yeah. So is there any advice you could offer other people that are now, maybe trying to build up an online business or a social media following, or maybe anything else? What advice do you have? What are some things that you have planned to be able to continue doing, running your business now that your kids are home?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And I'm fortunate enough to I'm a planner. I think I'm an EFSJ or whatever. So I'm such a J. I'm a planner. I have my content calendar.
We're the same type.
Yeah. So I have my content calendar ready for the next 6 weeks. And I'm literally today working on Mother's Day recipes, which in March, it's super early to be thinking about that, but that's how ahead that I like to be at all times. And which is great for if there's ever an emergency in the family, if I have to travel, I can take a week off and nothing happens. I'm just pushed back an extra week or so. And so at this time, I'm actually really considering just stopping, just actually because 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 I'm creating my own content, like photographing it and styling it and cooking it, like I'm I want to have the best ingredients. I want to show the recipe in the best light. So I'm going to try not to create too much new stuff. I may just be creating some things that I already have. So for example, if we're cooking a rice and lentil mujaddara recipe, for example, it's rice, lentils, and onions. I will definitely be making that recipe at least a few times. So it might be an opportunity for me to refresh those photos. So I'm looking at this time now to refresh old content because the blog has pictures from 2016 that I took that, Liz, like we're embarrassed of those photos we originally took. So I'm going to look at my content and figure out, what are those recipes that I want to make for my family that I have the ingredients stocked, and, how can I just refresh those photos? So it's not so much new content, it's refreshing old things and really taking a step back. And I think when it comes to stories, it's about using the kids in a way to create content, because I thought people followed me for the food mostly, but this week with the whole parenting part of it, people are really grasping onto a lot of that. They're like, oh, we'd love to see that sprinkling of parenting, like, you working with your kids and you creating that schedule. And I'm not like a mom blogger. I don't focus a lot on those kind of things. But I took a video that was going viral with like the pepper experiment. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
A pepper experiment.
I've seen it a couple different places.
Many people have shared that, and it's not even an original idea, but it's like, well, I could.
That's like an activity to do with kids.
It's an activity to do with the kids, and then it became content. And so what was cool is like thinking of an activity, thinking of things to do with the kids, that we can actually make content, because our life right now is the content, and because as influencers, people are looking to us. What are they doing? How are they filling their days? What recipes are they cooking? So, so it's hard for me because I pre-plan stories. I have like 20 recipes that I've pre-shot for stories that like I will not be sharing anymore. And because they just don't make sense all the time now, like all those stories of me cooking. So there's a lot of things that I can't show anymore. It just doesn't make sense. So it's about just taking what's happening now and sharing it with people in a way that informs them or entertains them. And that pepper video is an excellent idea. Like it's been around for 10 years. It's, if you Google it, it's a very old experiment, and a few people had shared it. And I thought, what, why not share it? Why not? And I actually did it with my son for the first time. He had never done it before. And he was like, what's going on? Like the pepper away from the, and so it's just like a prime example. Yeah. And the video did really well. The video got excellent views, and it introduced people to my account as well. It actually got new people to follow me who were like, oh, I didn't even know you existed till my friend shared this video of you. So it's ways also we have to think outside the box. And I know with some influencers, they're just going to continue sharing the food that they're making, and that's completely fine. And I will probably start doing that by next week. But as of this week, it doesn't make sense to just continue about my content calendar. I don't know how I feel about sharing Easter recipes right now, or tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day. Like, are people going out drinking? Like, I hope not. Like,
I saw a kid my age going out and drinking. I'm like, hey.
I'm like, I will be sharing a green smoothie that I make with my kids.
Well, like today, like I had a post scheduled for today that I just like moved up 2 months, and then I created real quickly on Saturday. I just made a roundup of like 15 freezer friendly meals, because I think the other thing is everyone has all this food now in their house because they spent more on groceries last week than Christmas. So kind of taking like I have 10 years of content. So and a lot of that content is really helpful for people right now, but kind of packaging it up in a useful way. So today's post was 15 freezer friendly dinners. So I feel like, to your point, just kind of taking it, what you might have had planned might not be relevant anymore, and just kind of figuring out ways to help educate, that type of thing.
I think for creators, I think it's okay to take a break. I think if you're a creator out there, your audience is not going to be mad at you because you don't have a new recipe this week. I usually do 3 recipes a week.
Right now.
Nobody's going to be mad. I usually do 3 recipes a week, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just going to push that content for summer. Like all those spring recipes, they can be posted in the summertime. I don't really need to share that stuff right now. I'm going to look at old stuff. I'm going to recycle things that people maybe didn't see. that spaghetti recipe that all goes in the oven, maybe
Right.
that's a good time to share it right now, because everything literally goes in the pan. You stick it in the oven for 45 minutes, and it's a good time to share those kind of things. So let's, as content creators, let's think about what we already have that people maybe haven't seen, because we don't all have super fans that know 100% of our content. Things are buried in the blog, things get buried in Instagram. So it's a time to kind of get creative too. And then ask your audience. I know, Liz, you've done a great job of like, what do you guys want from me? Like, do you want freezer meals? Do you not care for freezer meals? Are you looking for, and I thought most people wanted just like pantry meals and freezer meals, but people want to know how to preserve all the fresh stuff they bought. So it's
That's
like,
why I did freezer friendly dinners, because people have vegetables and meat. So they
yeah,
want to make a meal, but then freeze it for maybe in a few weeks. Like God
yeah.
knows.
How do I
Or just not
preserve
to
that?
waste
Like,
all the food that they bought in a panic.
yeah, and if they bought herbs, like how am I going to preserve those herbs a little bit longer? How am I going to preserve that kale that that's in my fridge? And it's like, well, I have those answers, and now it's time to figure out like how to
I know.
package those answers in the right way for people. And people want the information right now, so don't feel like, oh, well, 10 other bloggers already shared pantry meals. No, share it with your audience.
We're gonna
100%.
need we're gonna need millions of ideas because we're
We
gonna
need
be kind
so
of
many
for a
ideas,
while.
and
Right.
everybody's different, and your audience follows you for your perspective. And so even if, because I was like, oh, I'm so late sharing my how to stock a pantry, like everybody's
I've
already
never
shared.
done it.
So yeah, I'm like, oh man, I'm so late to share that. And it's like, you know what? No, people want to know what's in my pantry, because I cook a lot of healthy things, a lot of Mediterranean stuff. And so, yeah, I always have za'atar, for example,
Right.
I always have chickpeas, which might not be a staple for other people, but we always have chickpeas on hand,
Always.
and I always have tahini, for example. So yeah, those are the kind
Yeah,
of
I
things
probably
that,
would like your pantry more than
yeah, you'd be like 100. I send it to my
I
mom. I'm
forget
like, what
that
do you
not
think?
everybody has like tahini in their pantry. We just cleaned ours out and I like am stopped. That's
That's
Wow.
perfect. Yeah, and so yeah, it's just a good time to be creative, I think, too, and don't worry so much about new content. Worry about the right content. It's got to be what makes sense at this time. It's got to be timely content, not new content.
Wow.
right.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm thinking about. But it's tough because you know what? We are moms and we are busy, and we've, being an entrepreneur and being, working for ourselves, we always feel the pressure. And it's crazy because in a time of crisis like this, we're still feeling the pressure even more than everybody else, because not only do we have the pressure of our family, but we also have to like make everybody else feel okay and answer, like go out there and talk to people and give people answers. So I was up till 1 a.m. last night, like making my pantry list.
Yeah.
And because I owe it to my
That's
family
real.
to be present to them, but at the same time, I owe it to my business and my followers to kind of continue to give them the information that they want. Because if you don't show up right now, when things calm down, they're really going to remember the people that
Yeah.
resonated with them. Even for me,
Exactly.
I finding myself following new influencers or paying attention more closely to people because I feel like, oh my gosh, they're smart. Oh my gosh, they're giving fact-based information. Oh, they're citing sources that I can really rely on. And I'm finding myself gravitating more towards certain accounts more than others. And there's people who are ignoring the situation, and I'm finding myself like, oh, I don't,
Yeah, don't
relate
like
to you
definitely
anymore.
don't ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've
some
been
of those influencers that are ignoring it and just moving about I'm like, okay, well, you're being a little bit irresponsible right now, and I don't want to watch your content right now. So this is the time too when the algorithm is really going to get affected. Like the eyes are on the internet, and so if they're looking at your stuff, make sure that like it's resonating with them. And one piece of advice I would have for content, when I first realized that my content sucks, I was like, how do I make it better? And the way to make it better is to have people, they don't have to like it. Likes mean nothing. Like those likes and those views necessarily, they don't mean anything. It's about people saving it, and it's about people sending it to their families and sending it to their friends and tagging their friends on it. It's about those comments, and it's about those saves and reshares that people they may not like it. They may not even want you to know that they saw it.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
numbers analytics don't lie. And so the way to do that is to have something that makes people spend longer time on your content. So it could be a really long caption, but make it meaningful. Like, what's this long caption that you're sharing? It could be a long video, that actually gives information step by step. Like, first, I'm going to do this. Second, I'm going to tell you this. Third, people like lists. It could be a quick 15-second recipe that it's like, oh my gosh, she just made that with those 3 things. I want to watch it again and again and again and share it with all my friends. So, and it could also be, carousels. Carousels have people spending more time so they're scrolling through. People are curious. It's like the first picture is of this. What's the second picture? What's the third picture? What's the 10th picture? So these are all little tactics too to get people the eyes are online right now. And this is a great time for the algorithm to get tweaked. And to send signals to Instagram that people like your account. And I don't know if this is what happened with mine, but I shared that pepper video and it did pretty well, like better than my average video views. The next thing that I shared was a photo of strawberry banana bread, which I was like, I don't even want to share this. But I was like, I think people can make it with frozen strawberries and bananas. And I think everyone's baking it Sunday. And I hated the photo because I took the photo at 5 p.m. and the lighting was horrible. And I just did not like the photo at all. But it ended up doing so well. And I don't know if it's because Instagram got a cue that like, oh, people were really engaged on a previous post 24 hours ago. So that means you're going to be really engaged today. Or if it's just people really like banana bread. I have no idea. But
I think people love banana bread because
I think people really like banana bread. And I think it was timely. It was Sunday. It was baking and it did really well. For me, like 20,000 likes these days. I'm like, that's like a blessing. That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's just like, how do you get people, so people spending time on your content. So think about different ways like that people will keep their eyes on your content a little longer and not scroll through, like keep them there for an extra 5 seconds. And those 5 seconds are really going to help.
Okay. All right. Well, we should wrap things up because we're at that hour mark. Any final thoughts, Vince?
I'm gonna do everything you just told me to do, and like try to grow my Instagram. No, like honestly, like I just learned so much. I learned by like listening.
Yeah.
So like I might be on the camera like moving around and stuff. Like I'm picking up everything, and so for me at least, I really want to like go like try this stuff, and like you kind of gave me a different perspective of how to look at Instagram. So I think a lot of people, especially business owners, are always trying to push, right? Like here's my special, here's this. And we're not really thinking about what the end person might be into, and that could be the reason why we're not seeing the growth that we all want to see, whether that's likes, engagement, or sales. And then it's funny because when I do the Irie late night, which is 100% for my customer, that does the best, right? And it's because like the intent of that content is to give you some enjoyment. And so I'm gonna take all these little things you said, listen to like Gary Moore, and like just try to like figure out, get on TikTok. Like just keep doing more and more and more.
It's so fun, yeah. And I feel like don't be pressured too. Like you might like certain platforms more than others. I really don't like Facebook, and so I spend a very little amount of time on Facebook. But I love Instagram. I love TikTok. I enjoy Pinterest, but I do have somebody who manages it for me, who's an expert at Pinterest. There's some platforms that need experts, and Pinterest is one of them. YouTube, I feel like, is another one as well, which there's a certain way to post and there's certain things that you have to do. So there are certain platforms that are more intimidating. So pick the ones that you enjoy, and you don't have to tackle all of them. Like I did, I really just did Instagram for a while. And then I said, okay, let's try this, let's try that, and just take it one step at a time. So I've had people ask me so many times for tips on Instagram. And so I don't ever advertise this, but I started to do some consulting actually. And I've learned from consulting people on Instagram because, I'll have like a fitness person, for example, I'll have a nutritionist talk to me, and just hearing like their pain points, what they're going through, and suggesting. And actually, I even worked with a dentist once. So it's something that like I'll get on the phone and just talk for an hour or 2 hours with people and just hear their pain points of their business and what they're going through in their Instagram. It's usually for Instagram because that's that's the big one that people are so interested in right now. But it's so possible to grow now. There's so much. I get so inspired by seeing people who are starting their accounts like literally months ago and growing to hundreds of thousands of followers. It's still so possible. It's just about like knowing what your audience is looking for and, sharing that timely information. So, yeah. And I hope that you guys, take this time, this whole like coronavirus outbreak, like, there's so much bad that comes with it, but we're home. We have this option to like about our businesses as entrepreneurs and think about, refreshing old content, fixing things that we had no time to fix. Don't worry so much about the new stuff. Tackle those like those projects that you've been
that you
meaning
need to get that you need to get to, or yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's what I'm going to think about as well. Just like looking at my blog and fixing things that needs to be fixed and
Right.
filling in the holes.
I'll tell you what, I'm starting my restaurant consulting business today because the amount of texts I've gotten this hour from everybody asking what's going on, what should they do is crazy. I'm like, you guys are older than me, been in business way longer than me. You should not be asking me questions. But like,
You were a restaurant entrepreneur of the year, So people are looking to you. That's powerful. When people are looking to you for answers, I think it's really powerful. It tells you what you should create more of,
Yeah,
It's
that's
who your audience is.
exactly it. I always
Like,
say, whatever people are asking you the most questions of, that's where you should shape your business.
that's where
I
you
say
go.
that all. I probably tell Vince that once a day, literally. Like that's how I decide anything that I do is what questions am I getting?
Yes.
Where's the need? And you
Yep.
find the need by what questions you're getting.
Yeah. And maybe you think that people who are following you are customers, and maybe they're not though. Maybe the people who are following you are other restaurants owners, other entrepreneurs, other young people in the area. And so what do they want? Maybe they don't want to see what people are eating. Maybe they want to hear more about like your business mind, about how you got started, the struggles you went through.
That I know I do. Like,
I know I do as well. And so you kind of have to think about too, like it's a great time to do polls as well with people. Like, who are you? Are you a customer? Are you just a fellow like friend, or who are
Yeah.
you that's following me? It's really
Yeah.
interesting to see, because I think people who are following me are moms. I'm like, oh, they've got to be moms, but it's like, no, not necessarily. Like a lot of them are. There's a lot of college students who are following me, and that's why they love these like easy things. So we assume like, oh, I assume it's like a mom. I assume it's like people like me who are following me. And for the most part it is, but not always. So it's like gather information sometimes too from your audience. Like, who are you and what do you want?
That's
That will feed your next content.
Love this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we successfully did it, guys. Our first virtual.
And we didn't have to touch anybody.
I know.
Touch anybody.
I'm still gonna wash my hands after, just out of habit. But
Yeah, exactly.
anyways, thank you so much for coming on. I mean,
Yeah.
we've all learned so much. I'm so inspired and
Yeah.
can't wait to implement all these great tips. And we will have listed in all the show notes, all the great information shared here today. And of course, you can find Yumna at Feel Good Foodie on Instagram. So give her a follow, tell her you heard her here. And yeah, as always, thank you guys for listening. We'd love feedback from you about what you would like us to talk about. I know I would love, I was thinking in the future it'd be cool to hear from Vince more about what he's doing as a restaurant owner, during this situation. But whatever types of content you'd like to hear from us in the weeks and months to come. I mean, there's one thing for sure, we have more time to listen to podcasts right now. So if you do have a friend that might benefit from any of our 23 episodes, we would be so grateful if you texted it to them. I've had a lot of friends texting me podcasts these last couple of days. I'm like an extrovert that doesn't know what to do with herself all of a sudden. So I certainly appreciate them. So we would be grateful if you did that. But beyond that, really, we just want to say we're thinking of all of you and we are all in this together. And if there's anything else we can do to help you in the future get through this, any questions or advice or tips, we're here for you. But other than that, that's it. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it.
It was so fun.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.